episode, we are going to be recapping what happened in Week 10, as well as preview, prediction, and gambling what's going to happen in Week 11. So without further ado, let's jump right into what happened in Week 10 here. And in this one, we're going to start with the Bucks versus the Seahawks here. This was the game that was set in Germany. Looks like the Bucks got a humongous W here. Seahawks have been playing very well this season. Geno Smith has been quite a surprise. Kenneth Walker emerging onto the scene as a great running back. I thought the Seahawks were really going to give the Bucks some trouble, and they kind of did, especially in the second half. They fought back, and they had a pretty good game. But the Bucks eventually got it done. Tom Brady had a good game. They finally got the run game going for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had Leonard Fournette running well, Rachaad White running well, and I think that was pretty much the difference in that offense from what has happened earlier on in the season. So Buccaneers get a huge win. That means they are now the leader in the NFC South, which is huge for their playoff aspirations. So let's go on to the next game, probably the game of the week here, Bills versus Vikings. This was a crazy back and forth game. Looked like at one point the Bills maybe were going to put away the Vikings. Vikings fight back. Wild ending. Vikings get a fumbled QB sneak for a touchdown. Then the Bills go back down the field, and it looks like they're going to score and win the game eventually. And Josh Allen throws a uncharacteristic pick. He actually has the most interceptions on the year now, so he's made some bad throws and bad decisions the last few weeks, which has now put him in that position. But the Bills falter once again, and this now puts them as the third place team in the AFC East. So that is a huge deal because you have the Dolphins above them, and then also the Jets, who both have head-to-head tiebreakers against them because both those teams have beat them. So it's going to be a tough road ahead for the Bills to get back and potentially take that top spot in the AFC East. But they're a talented enough team to potentially do it. It's a matter of if Josh Allen kind of gets over that injury of the UCL strain in his elbow, and see if that proves to be a bigger deal than it may have been in this past game. But the Bills falter, Vikings win again, so the Vikings are still the number 2 seed in the NFC, and they are playing good football right now. Man, Justin Jefferson was balling. Looks like you can run on the Bills defense a little bit, so Dalvin Cook had a great game. Justin Jefferson, man, had a catch that was Odell Beckham-esque in this one, a one-handed snag, mossing a guy. So it was an all-around good performance from the Vikings, and they needed that W to stay atop, the NFC up there. So let's hop into the next game here. We have the Chiefs versus the Jags. Not much to say here. The Jags are not that good of a football team, but the Chiefs went in and got the job done. Patrick Mahomes is still playing like an MVP. One thing to spotlight here in this game is the fact that Kadarius Toney was a trade deadline acquisition for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he showed up huge in this game. He played very, very well. And so that's going to prove to be a big deal considering Juju Smith-Schuster went out of this game with a very bad concussion, so we don't know how long it's going to take for him to get back on the field. So Kadarius Toney being inserted into that offense and them getting him the ball is going to be awesome because he is very explosive, quick, fast, twitchy, and he was making some plays on Sunday. Let's go to the next game. We have Dolphins versus Browns. The Browns kind of kept up here for a little while. They made it, interesting, but the Dolphins offense proved to be a little bit too explosive. Tyreek Hill's still playing well. Jalen Waddle's still playing very well. And then that combination of Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson Jr., who they acquired at the trade deadline as well, is proving to be a very good 1-2 punch as the running backs there in Miami. So Tua just facilitating, getting the ball to his playmakers, and they're getting the job done on offense. The Dolphins defense still seems to struggle a bit, but I think they're probably going to get better as the season progresses. So let's hop into the next game. We have the Giants versus the Texans. The Giants get another big W. Texans were hanging in this game. They've been competitive the last 2 games, especially against the 2 last NFC East matchups. They had the Eagles last Thursday, and they played well in that one. Ultimately lost, and just like this Sunday, they ultimately lost to the Giants. It's a matter of really the Houston Texans' run defense not being very good. Saquon Barkley took advantage of that, had a touchdown in the game, and the Giants go on to win, keeping them as the number 2 spot in the NFC East. So that's a huge win for them, especially what has happened and transpired since that game ended on Sunday, and we'll get to that later. Next game, Titans-Broncos. Broncos are not a very good team. Their defense is very, very good. Their offense is very, very bad. Titans are a feisty, scrappy, they just will drag you into the mud and make them play their type of football game. And the Titans get another big W, and they just, place themselves at the top of that AFC South division, and I don't think they're going to relinquish that at all this season. So Titans get another big win. Ryan Tannehill was inserted back in that lineup after the ankle injury, and he looked good. He made the offense look better passing the ball, since Malik Willis really couldn't throw the ball a whole lot when he was in the lineup for the last 2 games. So obviously a huge deal to get Ryan Tannehill back in that lineup, because he's been way more efficient and way better in the passing game. So the Titans are going to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more formidable going forward with him in the lineup. All right, so let's go to the next game. Packers versus Cowboys. In this one, the Packers strike back. I thought their season was done after a very disappointing outing against the Detroit Lions last week. But Aaron Rodgers has something against the Cowboys. He's always going to play them tough, and he got it done this week. Christian Watson had 3 touchdowns. He was such a huge revelation for that offense. They had no real weaponry all season long, and he comes along finally healthy. He's been banged up all season, so he's been in and out of the lineup a little bit, so they haven't really been able to utilize him as much as they did in this game. And they were able to really, actually put the game plan kind of around him. And Aaron Rodgers began to trust him, and he threw him some deep balls, and he finally was catching them. Basically, Christian Watson is a heck of a prospect whenever he is focused on catching the football. That is his biggest flaw. I mean, he's like a 6'4", 440 type kind of guy. He's fast and he's big. And so I think he's going to be very good moving forward for the Packers. But they get a humongous W over the Cowboys. The Cowboys falter here. Dak Prescott throws a couple interceptions in very timely, high leverage situations in the game. And so it's very unfortunate for them, which then puts them in the 3rd spot in the NFC East now, with the Eagles and then the Giants winning again, and then the Cowboys losing, dropping them to 6-3. So it's a huge deal that the Cowboys lost, because it gives the Giants just one more inch in the right direction to potentially taking over the NFC East if the Eagles continue to falter, which we'll get to later. But yeah, so Cowboys lose. Packers maybe turning around their season. We'll see. I don't know. It may be too little too late, but let's go to this next game. We got the 49ers versus the Chargers. Chargers fought tough. Once again, Justin Herbert didn't have his weapons. Mike Williams was out. Keenan Allen still out with that hamstring. So he's throwing to DeAndre Carter and Josh Palmer, and they just couldn't get it done at the end of the day. Austin Eckler did his part, but the 49ers just proved to be a little bit too much for them. 49ers can really run the ball. They have Elijah Mitchell back in the lineup now, along with Christian McCaffrey. That's a heck of a 2-headed monster there. Elijah Mitchell got a lot more snaps and carries than I was expecting in this game, and I think it's due to the fact that I think they probably want Christian McCaffrey fresh for the playoffs, and I think they're going to make a playoff push here. They may take that NFC West division from the Seahawks, but we'll see if the Seahawks respond after the loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that's a huge win for the 49ers, going in the right direction, going towards the playoffs, trying to at least get a wild card, if not take over the division for the NFC West. Next game, it is the Eagles-Commanders. It was last night, Monday Night Football. Disappointing loss for the Eagles. I was not a very happy camper based on all the stuff that was transpiring during the game. I hate to do the whole refs were a problem thing. I'll get to that later, but let's talk about what actually happened with the Eagles and why they lost this game. Which is the reason that has, cropped up after, the last few weeks here. The Houston Texans were able to run the ball on the Eagles. Wasn't enough because the Houston Texans offense just isn't very good, especially with the, missing, weapons that they had. And then this game, the Commanders completely ran the ball down the Eagles' throat. They are really missing Jordan Davis. Once again, I have to reiterate that he was the Eagles' first-round draft pick. He is a 6'6", 360 type big old boy. He clogs up the A, B, and C gap. He's like the biggest dude on the planet. And they were without him because he got hurt in the Steelers game with a high ankle sprain. So he's on IR currently. He will be coming back, supposed to be scheduled for the Titans game. And I really hope he does, because Derrick Henry is going to run all over us, considering what has happened in the last 2 weeks with Dameon Pierce and Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. So basically, the Eagles' run defense has been very leaky. They really need to figure some things out. Jonathan Gannon has to adapt, and I don't know, he's got to do something with personnel. He's got to do something with scheme. Something's got to change, because the Eagles can't get run on like this. for the rest of the season, or else they are going to lose that 1 seed in the NFC, and I can see it happening if Jonathan Gannon does not make some adjustments. So basically, the Commanders were able to run the ball, which means their time of possession was way up. I think they held the ball for almost over 40 minutes of the game. The Eagles had the ball for less than 20 on offense, and so that's the tail of the tape right there. It's just you can't. Basically, the whole game plan for the Commanders was keep away from Jalen Hurts in the offense, because when they were on the field, they were pretty effective for the most part. So basically, the Commanders controlled possession, controlled the flow of the game, and some crazy stuff happened in order for this game to go the way it did. We had a Dallas Goedert screen pass. He's going up the field, and he gets face masked. Ref misses it. He fumbles due to that. Commanders pick up the ball, and they get the possession, go down, and kick another field goal to go up by 2 possessions. And then you have, right after that, basically the Eagles trying to get back into the game, throw a bomb to Quez Watkins. Looks like they're going to go down and score. They had some good momentum on this drive for the offense of the Eagles. Jalen Hurts puts a great ball out there for Quez Watkins. He catches the ball, goes to the ground to really secure the catch because it was such a high leverage situation, and he gets not touched. There was no contact, so he gets back up and goes to try to make a play, and Commanders defender comes up from behind, pops the ball out, he fumbles, and so basically all the air came out of the sails of the Eagles at that point, and it looked pretty grim. And then at the very end of the game, the Eagles did stop them, and Taylor Heinicke on 3rd down goes back, drops back, and he doesn't find anybody open, so he gives himself up, which he kneels way behind the line of scrimmage, which is a weird situation. You don't see it very often. And so Brandon Graham's coming, flying around the edge, and he sees a guy just kind of kneeling, kind of on the ground. I don't think he really understood what was going on in the situation, and so his first instinct is, let's go get this guy, let's go touch him at the very least so he's down by contact. And he runs into him in the head and neck area, as what the refs were calling it. They throw a flag, and that immediately gives them 1st down. They go into victory formation, and the Commanders win the game. So there was 3 real opportunities where I think the Eagles would have had a chance at a game-winning drive there, and they just all got, snuffed out by crazy situations. 2 uncharacteristic turnovers and 2 fumbles there, and then some crazy ref calls that went the wrong way for the Eagles. So I don't want to blame it all on the refs. It was some bad calls. We know this whole weekend there was unbelievably bad calls in the NFL from the referees, and so you just got to move on. Really, the Eagles lost. It's okay. I didn't really expect the Eagles to go all the way undefeated all 17 weeks. That would be incredibly tough to do, and then have the pressure of that going into the playoffs. So, in hindsight, it may be a decent idea for the Eagles to have lost this game. Not like they did it on purpose necessarily, but in this situation, it's not that bad, because I think they're going to learn from this. I think, Quez Watkins learning to really secure the ball no matter what now. I can bet you he's not going to fumble again this season, because that was such a big, part of the game and why the Eagles lost. So there are some things to learn from this for the Eagles. And so they're moving forward. They got the Colts next week, so they really got to fix that run game, or else Jonathan Taylor's going to run all over them again. So they got to really fix some things. But let's move on. That's pretty much it for the preview, or the recapping. We'll get into the previews here of this upcoming week's schedule. We have the Packers -3 against the Titans. And this one, I like the Titans in the points. I know the Packers just kind of figured some things out on offense, potentially with Christian Watson. But I don't know I think it's just a little bit too little too late for the Packers to really get back into the swing of things here and make a real run. So I think, and the Titans, man, they're so scrappy and they're so physical, and they make you play their type of football game. And so I think the Titans will, at the very least, cover this, if not win the game against the Packers. Especially with Derrick Henry, man. He's going to run all over that Packers defense. Next game, Giants -3 versus the Lions. I like the Giants here. Lions, still not a very good team. I know they just beat the Bears, but I think the Giants are a very solid team. It's going to take a team that's pretty explosive to beat this Giants team. Their defense is solid. Their offense is pretty consistent. So I like the Giants in this matchup with the points. Bills -8 versus the Browns. I'm actually going to take the Browns the points here. And just to like give this whole thing, I have more underdogs picked here than I do favorites. So that's just something to keep an eye on for this week as the lines start moving and whatnot. But yeah, I got Browns with the points at 8 for the Bills. So I think the Browns are a spicy team. They can run the football, which is something that we have seen the Bills are very weak at stopping, just kind of like the Eagles are. And so I think the Browns can really keep this game close at the very least. And I think 8 points is just way too much for a Bills team who has struggled a little bit here lately. The Browns defense is decent. They can get after the quarterback. And it has proven the last few weeks that Josh Allen, when under pressure, he has the ability to make some bad decisions with the football. So there can be some turnovers here. And we don't know how much that UCL injury is actually affecting Josh Allen. So next game, Patriots -3 versus the Jets. I got to go Jets with the points here. The fact that Jets are underdogs here is pretty wild to me, considering the Jets beat them the last time they played them. But I understand that it's really hard to beat a division rival and the same team twice in a year. It's tough because they make adjustments and whatnot. But I think the Jets defense is just way too good against Mac Jones. Has been just up and down this season. Hadn't been that great. But we'll see if the Patriots run game can maybe get some things going against the Jets and, stay balanced in that attack. But I like the Jets and the points. Next game, Ravens -12 versus the Panthers. Baker Mayfield is back in the lineup now. He is going to be starting for this game. And I like the Ravens and the points here. 12 points is a ton of points, but the Ravens, I think, are about to get on into a little bit of a roll. I mean, Lamar Jackson's incredible. He should be right there in the MVP voting. And I think he's just going to be way too much for the Panthers to handle with the whole running aspect. Marcus Mariota has given the Panthers a little bit of trouble with the running aspect in the past, and Lamar Jackson's way better than him. So we'll see how that goes, but I think I like the Ravens there with the points. Next game, Falcons -3 versus the Bears. This one I think is the easiest one for me this week. I love the Bears with the points here. I think I like the Bears money line here. The Bears have been playing much better football as of late. They've been really utilizing Justin Fields' actual strengths instead of just like assuming he's just going to be this great drop back passer. They're really using him the way that like they used Deshaun Watson back in the days when he was with the Texans, just like passing here and there, making him run here and there. They're really utilizing him the way he should be used, and it's pretty impressive what he's been doing as of late. In fantasy, he's been absolutely like gone nuclear. So it's impressive what the Bears have done offensively now. The Bears defense is still very, very bad, but I don't know if this Falcons offense can really take advantage of how bad the Bears defense is. We'll see, but I like the Bears here. Next game, Saints -3.5 versus the Rams. In this one, I do like the Saints, mostly due to just, once again, I'll just reiterate just how bad that O-line for the Rams has been this season. Then you add in the fact that Cooper Kupp is probably going to be out for the next few weeks. Matt Stafford has not played so well, and he's probably going to be back after, sitting out this last game with John Wolford, coming in for him. So I just like, the Saints, they're feisty. They can be explosive on offense. They just have, some downtime per game. But I think the Saints are going to win this game, and the 3.5 I think is good enough for them to cover. Eagles -7 versus the Colts. Man, I really want to say the Eagles are going to bounce back and smoke the Colts team. They're going to be mad they lost a division game to the Commanders, blah blah blah. But until I have to see it to believe that Jonathan Gannon is actually going to adapt and improve this run defense for the Eagles. Because Jonathan Taylor is on the other side of the football with the Colts, so he has the ability to have a really good game and keep this game close. I think ultimately the Eagles will probably win the game, but the Colts I think can cover. Next game, Commanders -3 versus the Texans. I have the Commanders here. The Commanders have been playing very good football as of late. They've kind of found their identity, which is run the ball, let Taylor Heineke make a few throws here and there, and just mitigate the whole turnover thing. Like, if they can just not turn over the ball, they're usually fine, and they're usually a pretty good team. The defense is better than people think, but this Texans team is just not very good, so I think they're really going to be able to run the ball, and so the Commanders I think will cover that 3-point spread there. Broncos -2.5 versus the Raiders. I'm going Raiders here. The Broncos, one thing they can't do is score. One thing they can do is keep people from scoring. And so, but the thing is, the Raiders do have weapons. Let's not completely forget that. I know the Raiders have been awful a lot of this season, but in their losses, they have scored points for the most part, other than the one just complete shutout they had the other week. But I think they have enough weapons to actually score. So I think I like the Raiders here with the points. I mean, if you're going to give me points against the Broncos, who like I said, with the crazy stat where if they scored 18 points every game, they'd be 8-1. I'll take the points in that situation. Cowboys -1 against the Vikings. So basically a pick 'em. This game is, I think, in Minnesota, which is wild that the Cowboys are technically favored in this one. But I'm going to pick the Vikings. I will believe it until I see it. One of those situations again where the Vikings have been playing good football. We'll see if the Cowboys defense can get after Kirk Cousins, because that's when Kirk Cousins really messes up and he kind of starts to poop his pants a little bit when the pass rush is getting to him. So I thought it was weird that Dan Quinn, I heard some stuff. I didn't really get to watch the game very, very closely, but I heard there was a lot of snaps where Micah Parsons was off the line of scrimmage and he was actually playing middle linebacker this past game against the Packers. And I thought that was a weird change of pace for what they've been doing, what has been working for the Cowboys defense. So they need to get Micah Parsons back on the D-line and kind of, rushing from the edge, because that's where he's most effective. He can really get after the quarterback, and that's when Kirk Cousins makes bad decisions, makes bad throws, can throw pick sixes, and just turn over the ball in general. So I do like the Vikings here because of how well they've been playing as of late, but I can see a situation where the Cowboys get back to playing their type of football and win this game. Next game, Bengals -5 versus the Steelers. People are going to say I'm crazy here, but I like the Steelers and the points here. And it's mostly because I think every game the Bengals and Steelers have been playing the last few years, no matter who's in and out of the lineup for the Steelers, it's always a close game. It's always a field goal type game. There's going to be a ton of field goals. And I just think the Steelers are going to keep it close here. I think the Bengals will probably end up winning the game, but I think the Steelers cover this one. Next game, Chiefs -6.5 against the Chargers. I got to go Chiefs here. This is basically just all in the back of, this is really just going to come down to, and we'll get information later in the week, and so I'll make some adjustments if I decide to go with one of these teams in my official gambling prediction of the week. But in this one, man, I like the Chiefs basically because the Chargers, I'm not too sure if they're going to get Keenan Allen or Mike Williams back. If that happens, I can see a world where I don't like this game. I probably won't touch it for my gambling predictions, but I like the Chiefs -6.5 as we stand today. Then we got the last one here, 49ers -8 versus the Cardinals. NFC West matchup again. I think I like the Cardinals here. The 49ers have been good, but they haven't been as good as I thought they'd be. They're not really utilizing Deebo Samuel as much as I thought they would. And so their offense has been okay, but it hasn't been great necessarily. They are a good running team, but the Cardinals' defense is very solid. So I think the Cardinals can keep it close. I think ultimately 49ers will win this game, but I like the Cardinals to cover here. That's pretty much it for this week's episode of the podcast. I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate my guy Weston for editing this. It is literally his birthday today, so happy birthday, Weston. You're the man. I appreciate you so much. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe to follow all of our social media platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. We're pretty much everywhere. And we're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify for the podcast. Once again, I appreciate you guys listening, and we will talk to you next week. See ya.